Hello and welcome to Gold Learning. I am so excited to be here today speaking with one of our speakers for 2024's Winter Gold Learning Day in January of 2024. I am Christine Starica, one of your MCs here at Gold, and I am here today with Tamara Drenttel Brand. She will be one of our speakers in January, and I would like to welcome you here and invite you to tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you'll be speaking about.
Hi, I just want to say thank you to Gold for having me. It's always a pleasure, and I'm thrilled to be here. Um, a little bit about myself. That could be many different novels. um, my presentation is on mast cell diseases, and it's not a very well understood topic or even studied. But it's estimated that 17% of the global population actually has some sort of mast cell disease,
Wow.
which is crazy. That's almost, yeah, 1 in 5, almost. And, this topic is personal for me because I actually have mast cell disease, and I noticed during COVID that my mast cell groups on Facebook, which were very small because it's considered a rare disease for those that are diagnosed. My groups kept getting bigger and bigger. I'm talking hundreds of people, then thousands of people joining. And it turns out that there's evidence is now showing that there's a direct link between long COVID and developing mast cell disease. And so,
That's incredible. And I'm sure our learners are going to be just fascinated by everything that you have to share about that. So, what intrigues me about you and your career is that at least three times I have seen you tackle something in the field which is, not said enough or not studied enough. And so, I'm used to seeing it, but for those who are new to you, what gives you that motivation and enthusiasm to dive into something that no one else is talking about?
I have in my personal life, I joke that I'm the 1%. And so I've been in that situation dozens of times, and so I know how it feels when I'm going to a new doctor or talking about something that not everyone understands. And so I really, really, the reason I chose this topic for gold is I really want to provide information, knowledge, and tools, not just for lactation consultants, but also for all healthcare professionals, so that they can provide more tailored, supportive, and empathetic care to clients with mast cell disease, and also COVID and other chronic diseases and invisible illnesses. Um, None of these topics are studied enough, and more importantly, they're not talked about enough. Not enough light is shed on them. And so, if I can even shed light for one person, and maybe that person can make a difference in someone else's life, then that's why I do what I do.
That's beautiful. And so many of us, that's the way that we look at what we do as something that we're driven to do that. Obviously, you're driven to serve people who have experiences that are somewhat similar or parallel to yours. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to share because what you're able to do with your particular skill set is to read research that isn't really about lactation. It's about the topics that you're studying, and in this particular one, about mast cell diseases, and apply what you know about human lactation, and then come up with frameworks for other people to use when they're serving clients who are experiencing this. And that is invaluable. So, what do you want, most of all for people to take away from your presentation about how they can best serve folks who are experiencing mast cell diseases, whether they're diagnosed or not, because I understand that part of the problem is that many people experience symptoms but have yet to be diagnosed. And so they're living with and trying to manage symptoms that they don't even have a name for. So what would you like people to take away from what you're talking about here?
It really goes back to the basics. Listening, asking your breastfeeding clients what are their goals, because every single patient that you have is going to have different goals. And so it sounds very simplistic, but it's so important because you can provide information and support, but if it doesn't help your patient reach their goal, then what's the point? And so, yeah.
That's great. There's so much to be found in that return to the basics. And so it's interesting to hear you say that because we're talking about a topic that's, not well studied, not spoken about enough, not well understood. And, there's other clinical topics that we have these conversations about, things that research is ongoing, where we're learning more and more every day, but mostly what has changed over the course of the last probably 10 to 20 years is that more people like you are finding interest in a clinical topic and pushing forward with it by applying the research that is out there. So as you move through this particular topic, are there other things that you're thinking about? What else is coming in? You mentioned that long COVID has become part of this sort of sphere of mast cell disease study. What other topics and clinical issues are you finding that are related and other things that need to spend more research and time on?
Research shows there's two things I want to point out. One, they call it the trifecta. If you have mast cell disease, you are more likely to have POTS and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And
Okay.
so that's something that healthcare professionals and lactation consultants can flag if one of their patients has one. Um, but there's so many other inflammatory diseases and chronic illnesses that if you have mast cell, you're more likely to have these endometriosis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, um, interstitial cystitis, multiple my pronunciation, MS. There's so many. I go into that in my presentation, but so many of these chronic conditions are linked.
That's incredible, to hear how many body systems are impacted by this. And so that just speaks to how much more we need to learn and how much more we need to focus on it. And again, what you said, to listen to people who are experiencing it and their experiences with pregnancy and birth and lactation and weaning, and trying to meet their goals in a world that isn't set up for them to be able to even manage their symptoms well. So all of that I think is going to be a real draw for folks who are watching your presentation. Is there one thing that you'd like people to know about your presentation when they're thinking about getting signed up?
That's a tough question. um, I in my past presentations, I'm known for having too many slides, providing too much information, and talking too much. And so, what I have decided to do this time is I made a huge uh, resource folder for participants. So some topics I'm not going to delve deeply in my presentation because I only have an hour, but I provided a huge amount of resources for the participants to be able to take home with them, and they can use them in their own practice. They can share them with their colleagues. Um, And so I'm hoping that those tools, sorry, my brain is getting spacey right now.
Oh, no.
One of the main symptoms of mast cell disease is brain fog, and no matter how much coffee I drink, it sometimes happens. And so I just I spent a lot of time trying to compile evidence-based information, resources, and tools for the gold participants. And so I'm hoping that that's helpful for them.
Well, it sounds like that's going to be a great enhancement to your presentation, something that people don't even expect. Most people expect to get copies of slides so that they can see diagrams in more detail, and read things that maybe went by too fast or if they lost their attention. But to know that you're also looking to provide people with a lot of takeaway reference information, that makes a really big difference. And it's one of the reasons that, you're a very special speaker for us here at Gold. We are so proud of all of the speakers that we are able to bring here to you at Gold through events like Gold Learning Day and all of our events throughout the year. So, Tamara, thank you so much for talking to me today about your presentation. I am personally looking forward to it. Totally sold. Definitely want to be there. And for the rest of the presentations on Gold Learning Day in January. So, thank you for joining us here today as we spoke with Tamara Drenttel Brand. And we hope you will visit goldlearning.com to get the details and get all signed up for Gold Learning Day so you don't miss out. Thanks so much for joining us.